Today's reading is from the book of Job, chapter 11. Can you find out the deep things of God? Can you find out the limit of the Almighty? It is higher than heaven. What can you know? Deeper than Sheol. What can you know? Its measure is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. If he passes through and imprisons and assembles for judgment, who can hinder him? For he knows those who are worthless. When he sees iniquity, will he not consider it? But a stupid person will get understanding when a wild ass is born human.
But a stupid person will get understanding. A stupid person will get understanding when a wild ass is born human. There's humor in the Bible, but sometimes we miss it because we think it's so serious. I love that line. Well, thank you, Ruth. A few months ago, we were getting ready to put together the worship calendar. I had come across a series by a colleague of mine. His name is Mark Feldmeyer. He's the pastor at St. Andrew United Methodist Church in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. Mark was at a conference that I was, and he was helping preachers figure out what to preach on. And he said, just go onto my website. I have all these series that I've done. And so I looked at it, and one of them was Walks of Faith. And I thought, that's interesting. I like that. And so over the past few weeks, we've been looking at different walks of faith. The first week was Walk Through the Fire, and we talked about how faith helps us through the difficult times of life. And then the week after that, we looked at Jesus walking on the water and how those stories came to be in the Bible and what that was about. And then last week, Wes Wild was here, who is a hospice chaplain, and we talked about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And so today we come to this walk into the unknown, walk into the mystery. It was only Tuesday or Wednesday when I started thinking about what am I going to preach on about walking into the mystery. I knew I was in trouble. What do I know about the unknown or mystery? So when you are at the end of the week as a preacher and you do not have anything by Friday afternoon, panic starts to settle in. And you think to yourself, my goodness, I got to have something on Sunday morning. And that's when prayer starts. So I started looking where you would look if you were me. I first looked in the Bible. I got out my concordance and I looked for the word mystery. And I found that was in the Bible about 25 times or so. But in the Old Testament, it's only found there about 5 times. And it's all in relation to when Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. And he asks Daniel what the content of the dream was. And Daniel says, I don't know what your dream was. That's a mystery. Says it 5 times. And so I thought to myself, that's not a bad thing to consider, but what does it have to do with us really ready right now? Daniel trying to figure out Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So I looked in the New Testament, and there are more uses of the Greek word which was translated into the word mystery for us in English. There's varied uses of it. There's the mystery of Christ, what Christ was all about. There's the mystery of lawlessness. There's the mystery of faith. But it wasn't getting to where I thought we might be able to grasp hold of it or where I wanted to go. And so I looked for different pieces. Then the scripture from Job speaks to the grandeur and awe and ineffability, the unknowingness of exactly what God is. So that's why I used that text this morning. And then I started to think about God as mystery. And I knew I'm going to be in murky waters when I started going down that road, but I couldn't help it. Because I don't use that way of thinking about God as mystery. I simply don't do it. But one of the members brought me a book after my last class, after Kay and my last class, and the book is called What is God? not who is God, but what is God, how to think about the divine. It was from her daughter who took a philosophy class at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. And she said, I might be interested in it. So I looked at it, and I read much of it, not the whole book, Pat, but I read some of it. And this person, whose name is John Hott, said, here's how to think about God. What is God? And he used these topics: depth, the future, freedom, beauty, truth. But the concluding chapter, the whole thing that he came down to was that God is mystery. John Hott. And then I thought, somebody else has come up with that, some other theologian. And so I looked it up just like you would on Google. And it was a man named Emil Brunner. He was a German theologian back in the 1920s. He was one of the three famous German theologians who brought neo-orthodoxy over to our shores that ruled the day through the 1900s. And so this is what he wrote. Anyone who speaks of God as though he were a cousin, that is, familiar, about whom naturally one knows everything, really knows nothing at all about God. The first and most important fact that we can know about God is ever this: we know nothing of God except what God has revealed to us. God's revelation always occurs in such a way as to manifest more deeply God's inaccessibility to our thought and imagination. All that we can know is the world, and God is not the world. Therefore, God is mystery. One of the great theologians. Both of those authors claim that God is mystery. And all that I could figure out after I got to those two places was that I know that does not work for me, that God is mystery. I disagree with it 100%. And then I started to ask the question, why is that? Why do I disagree that God is mystery? And another member, Kay, and I were talking about it, and she reminded me of something that I learned at Iliff School of Theology many, many years ago. It was a test. She said, do you remember Corinne Ware? That's where I go to. And I said, I remember Corinne Ware. We talked about her at seminary. And she had given this test. And so what I did was I printed out all these tests. And if the ushers would go ahead, I'm going to give you a test this morning. Dave and Shannon, would you go ahead and grab those tests? You didn't think you were taking a test. Yeah, if you'll just pass those out. Thank you. Just take one. Everybody should get one because everybody has their own spirituality. It doesn't matter if you've been married 50 years, you have a different spirituality, I suspect, than your spouse or partner. So everyone should get one of those. Corinne Ware, she was an Episcopalian. And back in the 1990s, she looked at the way that people came to worship, and she understood that different people liked different things in worship. Some people like singing and music. Other people go, I don't care for the singing and music. I want to know what the pastor is going to say in the sermon. Other people don't care about the singing and the music. They don't care about the sermon and what the pastor says. What they want is a time of silence during the prayer so that they can settle in. And other people come to church to get fired up about a social justice issue. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used church as a spear for justice. So there are these four different kinds of people. And so I want to give you this test. And you don't have to take it now, but you certainly can. There's only 15 or so questions. And what happens is you just circle the thing that you agree with, and you can agree with more than one thing. All through those questions, you can agree with more than one thing. and then you just make a spoke or a number of how many times you had a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And you can see on page 4 that there's this little wheel, and it talks about whether you are head people, which I have to tell you, I am a head person. I want to know why things are the way they are in church and outside of church. I question. That's my mode of spirituality. I know it. But there are people, I don't know if you've heard of these people. I don't know if you've heard of these people. They will collect unmatched socks for homeless people. Have you ever heard of anybody like that? You have? Those people have great heart, don't they? There are people who collect coats and they want to take them to the homeless. Have you heard of people like that? Those are the people who come to church and their hearts are filled. There are people, and I will call out a member, Terry Haven, who is a social justice warrior. And on the back, in the welcome desk, there are the different questions and proposals for the election, and she's got those back there for you if you're interested. For her, that's the important part. And John Hott and Emil Brunner are mystics. They understand that God is mystery, and they move toward that mode. So when I was looking at this, I looked under the type on page 5. If you just turn to page 5, it says type 1, head spirituality. It's not a very nice name, is it? On the third little bulletin point, it says it tends to mistrust mystery and minimize emotions. Duh. That's me. And then if you go down to type 3, mystical spirituality, the first one, it says, this is a mystical spirituality that emphasizes the mystery of faith and the ultimate unknowability of God. No wonder I disagreed. I found myself in number 1, in the head. And there they were talking about the mystic part of it. Opposite ends of the quadrant. Now, you will, as I did, as you circle the number of things that you like, you will find probably that you have marked different things in different quadrants. You're not just all one thing. We're a mixture of different things. And so when I did mine, I found out that I thought I'm all head. And so I have 6 marks going into head, but I had 10 marks going to social justice and 3 in heart, which I'm glad that I had a little bit of heart. And then 2 in the mystical spirituality. I do have a little piece of that in me. If it was up to me right now in my life as a 60-year-old, I would be a Quaker. Just go into a room with people and sit in the quiet. I know that about myself. So I urge you to do that, and I invite you to do that. Because I think it tells us about ourselves, about why we think something is important, but somebody else doesn't think that's very important. And here's how it can work right here and right now for you. The United Methodist Church is on the verge of breaking up. It's on the verge of breaking up. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take out a Bible if you've got one in front of you. There should be a couple, 3 or 4 in each pew. And I want you to turn to Mark, the Gospel of Mark. I'll get you a page right here. Chapter 16 of the Gospel of Mark. It's page number 760 in the Bible, in the Pew Bible, page number 760. I want you to go down to verse 17. This is the third ending of Mark. There's the original ending, then there's the short ending, and there's the long ending. This is part of the long ending. Somebody added it to the Gospel of Mark. The original writer didn't write this, but it's in the Bible. Verse 17, these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands, and when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them at all. How many of you have been to a church where they handled snakes? Page 760, Mark chapter 16, verse 17. Page 760. Is that what you have in your Bible? Might be another kind of Bible. Right here, verse 17. Good. Yep. Got it? Now, Bob Pierce, who some of you know is a member of the church, Bob went to visit some relatives when he was a teenager. West Virginia. I don't know anything about West Virginia, never been there. But he went to West Virginia. In that place, it's a little white chapel, a little white church. The windows were open. And at one point in the service, the pastor had snakes and put a rattlesnake down on the ground. Bob was sitting in the front pew. The window was open. The rattlesnake came toward him. He jumped out the window. Now, here's my question to you. It says it in the Bible that you will be able to handle poisonous snakes and drink poison without any kind of damage. I want to ask you a question. Where are the snakes? Where are they? It says it in the Bible. Where are they? Why don't we have them right here? Why haven't we had poisonous snakes in the Methodist Church for 225 years? Why don't we have them? Why aren't you drinking poison? I can tell you this, there wouldn't be a church very long if you did. Why? Because we use our minds, right? We use our minds and we think to ourselves, what in the world? This is not the way to be religious. But there are churches still existing in the United States where they practice handling poisonous snakes, rattlesnakes, vipers. That's what they think faith is. Now, here's my contention. Here's what I want to say to you. We've got these 4 different kinds of people in the United Methodist Church, in all churches, really. Right now, the United Methodist Church is almost ready to break apart because there are people who want to follow the rules that they believe they find in the Bible. They are people who are in that head section, which is where I am. There are people who think these rules should be followed, and if they're not followed, then people should be penalized and, in fact, kicked out of the church. And those are my people. Those are the people who want to figure out things and do things the right way, this way. They're my people. What I want to say to you this morning is this. There are all sorts of different people in the church. For 225 years, it has worked for us. I believe that it can still work for us. But somehow, we have to get the message through to others that, of course, there are different things in the Bible, like handling poisonous snakes and drinking poison, but you don't do that. So why did you decide that this one verse or this 5 verses are the things that are the most important, and if people don't follow them, they'll be kicked out? That's the question. That's the question that we should ask. That's the question that I can't figure out. Why is it that my people, the head people who want to figure things out, see the church in such a different way than I do? I believe we can stay together. I believe we can stay together, but it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work. But when you hear a friend, or maybe you are this person who says, we cannot have this kind of people in charge of the church, we can't have that, then I want you to ask them, when are you going to start drinking poison and handling those poisonous snakes? When are you going to do it? Because I want to see it. When we come to this place, we come for different reasons. Some of us come for the magic of the music and the warmth of that. Some of us come to ask questions about what it is that we're doing. Some of us, we don't care about any of that. We just want to make the world better for everybody. I don't know where you're at, but I'm glad you're here. Amen? Amen.